Hello and welcome to AZAAZ. That's Ask Zenatta Anything About Zoho. This is Volume 1, Issue 26. This is where you do the title of the show. You ask Zenatta, that's us, questions about Zoho. That's that software product that you're using, or you just have a twisted sense of humor, you're bored, and you just like to watch this show for no reason at all because you're like, I wonder what a Zoho is. I don't know. Is it something you eat? Is it chocolate covered? Is it something you drink like a Yoo-hoo, or is it just a Zoho? Anyway, Zoho is a suite of software applications, and there's a lot of them, like 300, 400, 500, 1,000. And we have to go through and dig through and understand how they work and what they do and all that kind of stuff. And we help you have questions about them, and we answer them. And I have the experts, so I've got Greg Belknap, the man, the myth, the legend. Then over here I got Tyler Colt, and then down here I've got myself. Landon McCluskey, and they're all Zoho experts. I'm just your host, and occasionally I answer some softball question that they throw my way. But we've got some good ones today, and with that, Greg, take it away.
Me too. Beat Z over at Club Z is asking, does it make sense to restrict developers to the CRM sandbox? It would be easier restricting them from seeing NDA-restricted data, but would it make life difficult because of other restrictions that this might imply? And that's a great question. So first off, to answer your direct question about the NDA restricted data, then absolutely. Because the nice thing about the sandbox is that that's where you can go and work on stuff and none of the data has to get pulled over. In fact, caveat there, one thing that I wanted to talk about is sometimes a pitfall that we've seen some people fall into when using the sandbox is then trying to use that sandbox with live data and then try to push that back over, and then there's a whole bunch of reconciliation stuff. But yes, I think using the CRM sandbox for helping to restrict that data access, I think is a great idea. It does depend on perhaps some of the integrations that you're using. For example, if you are using Zoho Finance, right, to create invoices or expenses, that sort of thing, and you have those tied to CRM records, integrations like that, any of those marketplace integrations, unfortunately, do not carry over into the sandbox. The sandbox, as of right now, only has just whatever the core CRM, functionalities are. So if you have any workflows involving invoice creation or something like that you have to also test and work on, unfortunately, that can't be done from the sandbox.
Have they fixed, I mean, even just the basic stuff, there's this particular order things have to be pushed over, right? It's like when you have the sandbox, you need to like push things in a certain order. Do they fix that where it was kind of like, if you didn't know the order to do things, it would break, or has that been adjusted now?
It hasn't been adjusted as far as I know, but the way that I've been able to make it work is usually you just try to push over all the stuff that you want to, and it'll say, oh, we couldn't push this over because it was dependent on something else. But then if you just rerun everything, if you just keep rerunning everything, then eventually the thing that had to get in there before will get put in there, and then the next time you run it, it's gonna be fine. So yeah, when in doubt, just keep.
Just do it that way. Todd, I always thought you had a particular order for these things when you were pushing them live.
Yeah, a lot of times it's like the most simple elements to the most complicated. So, start with like pushing the fields or push the modules, then the fields. Then, what I've actually found is pushing the functions, then the workflows. Because if a workflow references a function, the function has to exist. The big one where everything gets really messy is in connections. That is really where, with functions that require a lot of connections, and this is maybe not how everyone does it, I just plan on having to manually copy those over. Because what will happen is if you use connection names that match any existing connections you already have in the production account, you won't be able to push the functions because they won't recognize that those are the same as the new ones you set up in Sandbox. So it's a bit of a mess when you get into the connection piece, but you just kind of plan on that being part of your deployment, is having to sort that out, and then it's no biggie. There are just handful of things you can't do though, like mail merge, right? There's still no mail merge in Sandbox, which for a lot of our builds kind of kills it, right? Because we're doing proposal generation, doc generation, things like that. So it's a little tricky. I wish the Sandbox did a little more.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we just had a story, what was it, last week, that Canvas view is now can now be pushed into Sandbox, right? So I figure with some of that other stuff like mail merge, it's probably just a matter of time. But for now, there are some of those restrictions. So I think Beatsy, if you are using the Sandbox for so if you have devs that are going in there and just making workflows that are just, if you're not integrating with anything else, right, then 100% for sure you're good to use the Sandbox. If your developers are having to write functions and code that talk to other apps, then you're probably better off just making them sign an NDA and then let them into the production side to make your life a little bit easier.
All right, next question here was asked over on the Club Zenatta Q&A for AZAAZ. Post title is Zoho Books for small business. So Akshan asks, I am wondering why Zoho Books is always described as software for small businesses. No mention of mid-size or enterprise businesses. Could you elaborate on the possible problems of Zoho Books as a company scales to higher levels? So good question. I mean, there's kind of two ways that you'll have issues when you scale with Zoho Books. The first of which is going to come in with the volume of automated actions that you need on a daily basis. So Zoho Books has a robust API. It can do a lot of things. A lot of the API limits make it a little rigid, right? Where we're talking 30 API calls per minute, right? Or by default, it's 5,000 a day, Greg? And they'll raise that to either 1,000 or 5,000 a day. Same even with custom function executions, which is a separate limit in Zoho Books. Those also have, I think, out of the gate 2,000 or 3,000 a day, something like that. Now, a lot of those limits can be raised, but they can't be raised indefinitely. And when you raise them and you start running that volume of automated transactions, the application will actually slow down. We had a customer who during like Black Friday periods, we would need to raise their API limit to like 50,000, right? We would need to raise their custom function limit to like 25,000, right? Because on Black Friday, they were selling, 10x what they would normally do. And for that whole week, the system was insanely slow. It was legitimately affecting like the front end user's ability to interact with the platform to the degree where we actually had to have Zoho change the way inventory valuation was calculated and calculate it every day rather than every time a transaction is logged. So they would only be able to see accurate inventory valuation like from 6 to 10 p.m. basically was, kind of their sweet spot. Now, let's be honest, it's actually not that big of a deal, right? Like you don't need that number on hand every second of every day. So it was fine. But there is definitely a consideration when it comes to like the throughput limits on Zoho Books and Zoho Inventory. And then some of the other issues as you go and scale are just some of the more specific needs that some companies have. Generally, larger businesses care a lot about things like asset depreciation, right? Now, you can do that in Zoho. It is a little clunky. Not every accountant kind of likes how it's set up inside of Books, right? Maybe larger businesses get into work that requires progress billing, right? That's going to be a little clunky, right? You can end around it. You kind of tie it to CRM. You set up a Books project and you can kind of make it work, but it's never going to feel quite like it should. And then the big one, I would say, like, comes in terms of the type of requirements you have for your accounting tool. Honestly, Zoho Books would work for Zenatta even if we were 10 times as big as we are now, right? Other than maybe API limits and things like that over time. But because we don't carry inventory, right? We don't have 50 warehouses spread out over the country. I don't need to track work in progress, raw material usage, right? Any of that, right? We sell time and we log time. We have a very simple business from a, what we sell, what we deliver perspective. But as businesses scale that carry inventory, oftentimes you do hit a point where it starts to make sense to have a full-scale ERP in the background, which a lot of people don't want to do. And I get it, because ERPs a lot of them look pretty outdated, pretty ugly, pretty slow to use compared to something like books. But, if you're manufacturing products, you're probably going to grow out of books eventually. Guys, I miss anything? I'd say those are kind of the big ones that came to my mind.
I mean, I think you covered it all. I mean,
Payroll. That's
Payroll's
a big
big.
one. Payroll.
Payroll's huge.
That has to integrate for large companies.
There is an integration with Sure Payroll, but that's again for small business. Really, that stops at 100. There are some other things you can do there. I think the biggest problem I will tell you is that Zoho has a tendency with a lot of their applications. They make changes to it and they push them out live into the open, and this happens a lot. Most applications, it's not that big a deal, right? It's okay. Books is not that kind of an application. And Zoho basically is doing it. We use Zoho Books. We recommend our clients use Zoho Books. It's interesting. It's gotten worse in the last 2 years. It is, the number of errors and breaks. I mean, they've made a lot of improvements, but it breaks a lot. Small businesses can live with that. Enterprise can't, and that's kind of what it comes down to. Everything you talked about, hey, I'm sorry, it's not fetching my bank feeds. Great. You've got a checking account, right? You can manually do it. You're a small business. Oh, it's not fetching my bank feeds. I've got 70 different holding accounts and management accounts and equity. I've got all this stuff, right? It's kind of a problem. So, I think it's just more of a scale thing, Tyler, like you mentioned, and and with all those other little things on top of it. But all that being said, the ability, like you were talking about, the integrations with all the other applications, the automations, all the things you can do, they oftentimes outweigh the little bit of pain and suffering you have to go through here. But anyway, it's interesting. But I think there'll be a little theme here as we go through to our next question.
But right before we do, I do have another thing that Tyler was mentioning. We were talking about inventory management and things like that. Tyler, you and I were discussing the other day about the limitations in like item groups and variations, right? In Zoho inventory, that like, let's say that you're a clothing company and you have t-shirts, and you have for one like t-shirt design, you've got like 5 different colors, red, green, blue, yellow, orange, and then for each of those you have your extra small, your extra small, your small, your medium, your large, your extra large, your double XL, triple XL. While it seems like you would think logically, well, yeah, that's one item with a bunch of different, like parameters you could have. But the way that if you're actually having to physically track any of that inventory, you have to make 25 different items in Zoho inventory. You have to make a green extra small, and then a red extra small, and then a yellow large and a blue medium, and
you could do it with an item group to kind of give yourself a UI where you might feel like you're creating one item with parameters, but what it's doing is creating 25 items on the back end, which for some people is good, but again, some people that isn't going to make any sense for them, right? And that's where it gets in the tricky part.
Yeah, we had somebody reach out to us on Club Z that needed some help with some inventory automations, and they said, I don't know, it's just it's running slow, things aren't always working the way they're supposed to, and we couldn't see anything wrong with the code that they were using. And we said, well, I mean, like how many items are you dealing with here? And they said, oh, we have 127,000 items in Zoho inventory. And we're like, oh, okay, well there's your problem. That's too many. That's too many items for Zoho inventory. That's just a lot. Oh, that's way too big for what inventory is like good at good at organizing. So yeah, just another thing to pepper in there.
All righty, let's move on to our next question. All right, Stuart asks, I'm curious to know why Zenatta chose to use Circle.so or Circle.so for Club Zenatta rather than one of the Zoho products like Desk Community Feature or Zoho Connect's external network. And this was posted over on Club Zenatta. Stuart, this is a great question. And we try to use Zoho products all the time. And we are constantly wanting to always use Zoho products. I will tell you, we are currently using, I'm going to answer your question, Stuart, but we're currently using Calendly instead of Zoho Bookings. Why? Zoho Bookings just lacks a lot of core functionality and features that we need in our booking software. We use Zoom for our meetings instead of Zoho Meeting. Why? Again, core functionality, stability, those kind of things, kind of lacking in Zoho Meeting. It would save us $10,000+ a year if those two products were up to our standards and we could use them. And we want to. And oftentimes, as we talked about on the books thing, we'll say, great, this is still not quite there, but it's great. And I think that's a decision a lot of people make with Zoho. It's like, I've got Zoho One, I'm paying $45 per user per month, and I get all these products. So, I'm willing to make a couple sacrifices here and there because of the amount of money that I'm saving. And then on the other hand, some of the products are absolutely the best in class, and you're got a winner all the way around. Zoho doesn't really have, to answer your question, a real online community software. Okay, Zoho Connect is great, but number one, I think if there's more than 2 people working on that product, I'd be surprised. Okay, we do the CRM Zen show. We cover every single thing that happens in the world of Zoho every week. And I would say Zoho Connect gets mentioned, once a year, Tyler? Maybe? I don't know.
Once a year. And thing with Connect as well, and I don't know if you had a lot of visibility into this, Brett, but we had a couple clients, one or two actually on the finance side, working primarily with John, where I got looped in to try to help them roll out a Zoho Connect external network. And every step was throwing errors. Every single step. We had to get in touch with support to send out the invites. Then people tried to accept the invite, so we had to get in touch with support again because they were landing on a 404 dead URL when they were trying to make their accounts. And then once they were actually in, some of them ended up getting booted later, which, so just each step of the way, kind of like you're saying, Brad, it's I don't know if that product has a level of support, it's that we would look for as we're trying to build out something that, our idea is this might be core to our ongoing, presence.
And it hasn't had much development going on in the last, last 8 years. Not really much has happened to it. It's a great application, by the way. For what it does, I love. We used to use that for so many different things, and it's got really cool little point things in it. But it's not a real social network kind of software, and what we were looking for was something completely engaging that would handle all of the different things. Now, we were all over the map on this, Stuart. I mean, this was a very, you may have, if you remember, we actually started with BuddyPress, which is the free WordPress online community. And then there's a premium version of that called Buddy Boss that does a whole bunch of things. And we used Buddy Boss for a while. But again, that was one of those where, gosh, every time you wanted to do something, it was super expensive. And it just seemed like there were basic things that it should have done that it didn't do. And so we went on quite the journey to find Circle.so. And it really is the leading online community, but that's what it does. And it's one of those products where, we needed it for that. And they are constantly improving because, people ask me this all the time. Why is, what's the difference between QuickBooks and Zoho Books? To go back to the other one. Hey, Zoho Books is great. It does a whole bunch. QuickBooks has one business. They're in the accounting software business. That's all they do. Of course, it's going to be a better product. That's all they do. You get the same question around, a variety of Zoho Sign. Well, has DocuSign better? Well, of course, DocuSign's better. It's all they do. They have a team of hundreds of developers just working on DocuSign, and it's a great app. Is Zoho Sign great? Yes, it's great. But But you kind of have to. These are the questions you got to ask yourself. I think when you kind of looking at these various products, right? And if you go to Zenatta.com and you click on resources, we break these down as to yes, maybe, and no. The yeses, if it's in the yes category, it should be good for anybody. Should be good for enterprise, should be good for small business, where it's rock solid. Don't even worry about it. It's a great application. If it's in the maybe category, that's where these caveats come in, right? And so, you kind of look at that. But Connect might even be in the yes, because I never actually think of it as a full social network across the board.
Yeah.
It's more of like an internal kind of thing. But there are little things that they need to work on, and that's it. But we chose it because if you are a member of Club Z, you get that beautiful weekly newsletter. We don't have to do that. That's automatic. That's done every week. Here's the top things that happened, right? It categorizes the events. It tells you the upcoming. All of these, it has beautiful community automations, keeping everybody involved and everything going. And I don't know, Greg, you live in that thing a lot. You think Circle.so is pretty rock solid, huh, for what we use it for?
Yeah. It's been pretty seamless in terms of, making nice posts, being able to, easily mention other users. If anything, at least the text editor in it is, first off, way better than what we had in Buddy Boss. But yeah, it's just it's been a good I think switchover for us, and meets all of our needs.
It's not that expensive. I want to say, Stuart, it's like $400 a year, something like that. And you get everything, and that's like their premium edition. It's not. I don't remember it being all that expensive. So I don't know, guys. Have any of you guys actually played with Zoho Desk community feature at all?
I never touched it.
I've got one client that uses it. They use it internally only, and so they don't use all the features of it. I don't know that it's terribly robust. I think it's mostly just categories, etc. So it doesn't do as much as Circle. I know that, but I think if you have just a smaller amount of people and you've already got them in your help desk, in the help center and desk, why not try it out? But it's definitely not quite as robust, for sure.
I mean, isn't Desk's community feature, isn't that what like the Zoho community is built on? Like that same kind of software? Like it's, so however, Zoho's community boards are like set up, I'm pretty sure that Desk's is the same way, isn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I always tell my clients, if you want to see what a desk, help desk, or community or anything looks like, just go to support.zoho.com or just zoho.com and get to it and show you exactly what it's going to be. So,
and and also, let's not forget, Circle.io is it has a ton of things. All of the events can be managed there. All of your announcements can be managed there. All of the users, you can have easy private forum. You can have, if you want, you can have gated paid paywalls where you can have certain things behind various paywalls. I also haven't noted there's a full LMS there. And the guys that built Circle came from Teachable. Is that right? And Teachable is where we have all of our team training courses. So our CRM team training and our desk team training and our projects teams training, they're all there. And, eventually that may move over to Circle because it's got that integrated training behind it and the community that you might want to have behind your training programs as well. There's a whole bunch there. Again, it's just taking a look at what's best for you. I mean, I think for a lot of people, hey, go ahead.
Oh, and it also has a REST API, so you can connect to Circle programmatically.
Right, which we've done.
Right.
But I mean, that's not saying that Zoho's desk community feature isn't great. I mean, it could be exactly what you need. So I guess to wrap this up, list everything you need and say, hey, does desk community take care of it? Does Zoho Connect take care of it? If not, maybe a combination of the two, then you're good to go. Or then you may want to go say, well, let me go take a look at Circle.so. Let me go take a look at Buddy Boss. Let me see if these things might fit my needs a little better. So,
all right, this one is from John Oliver. posted in Club Z, post titled project and or FSM and or desk. So he says, I'm in the process of setting up Zoho projects. I believe it's a good fit, but some areas I was missing seem to be showing up in FSM, scheduling of technicians in the field, integrations with products, inventory, books. Then we have to service these clients years after and upgrade their system as time goes on, and FSM and or desk might be better. So just trying to understand where projects should be utilized now, FSM and even desk, wondering your perspective on how these three pieces fit and don't fit together. So there's a million things to address here, but I'll try and keep it pretty focused. So the biggest thing here is using projects versus using FSM. Really, it's kind of the scale of your projects, right? So if you're doing a 6-month, year-long project, or, you know, even over the course of a month, something that's got tons of details, everything there, projects is probably your best bet, right? FSM, if it's kind of a smaller project, you know, it doesn't have to be touched by a billion different people and everything, and you need your technicians scheduled out there, and they need to be able to, you know, put all their information and everything. FSM is probably your way to go. My personal, how I would tell a client to put this together, of course, it depends on exactly how your business works, but one app that's not even mentioned here is CRM. I would say you can kind of house everything in CRM, your clients and everything, and then you can put the deal in for what that project might be or something like that, and you can tie it to FSM. So you can schedule your technicians to go out, right? They can put everything in. It can tie directly to books and inventory within FSM. That way you have a record over time of those different deals, those different projects, right? So if 2 years down the road they want to upgrade, you don't have to go into projects and find that old project and go through all this. You've just got a summary of it right on their record in CRM. You can see everything that was there, all the inventory that they have. It's just all in one place. And then when you go to upgrade it, it's just, oh, let's go right here. And then if it ties to FSM, you go to, you know, upgrade them, you go out into the field and everything. So for me, again, you said projects seems to be a good fit. So absolutely, that's definitely something. If it works for you, keep it. For me, from what it sounds like, I'd probably do CRM and then tie in FSM. And, you know, if you have issues, right, help desk issues, desk could be good for that. I might not use that as my, you know, long-term repository of the issues and upgrading. But, you know, if somebody calls in, they got an issue with something, I'd definitely be using desk for that. So,
yeah, and there will be in the future an integration between desk and FSM, where maybe you have like the intake of an issue at a location, and then you determine it needs to be a work order, right? So you'd kind of convert it to FSM to manage through that flow. But yeah, it's tricky. This is something that we run into sometimes, and I don't know the perfect answer yet. And it might end up being an integration between projects and FSM that needs to happen, because there are those cases where we've got this, like, you know, 6-month project implementation, this thing we're going to do at a location. And so instantly you're like, okay, projects. I need a big Gantt chart. I need dependencies. I got lots of different people working on this. But, you know, 30% of those tasks might actually be better managed with a scheduling tool like FSM. Because for me, at least my experience, the scheduling functionality in projects in terms of like, we need technicians to go to sites can be a little clunky. It's not impossible to do, but it can surely be awkward. Where it would be really nice if in like a projects task, you could click a like make work order button, right? And now you could do your scheduling, the inventory, everything else on, you know, the FSM side and kick it back over to projects. Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head in the short answer there, Landon, in terms of just, is it 6 months long? Probably projects. Is this a 2-day job? Probably FSM. If it's something in the middle, that's a judgment call. That's where it gets into, yeah, the trickier decision making.
Yeah. And John, hey, why not a creator app, right?
Yeah.
Just build it from the ground up.
Yeah. Now that the writer strike is over, I'm hoping that, you know, John can get last week tonight back on the air pretty quick here.
So, yeah, he's desperate.
You know, he's been spending a lot of time with Zoho, but it's time to get back to work, John. It really is.
It's gonna be the last 5 months tonight. Let's get it happening.
Bill Maher's doing backflips. He's going back on the air. Writer strikes over. How about the actors, Greg? Are the actors back yet?
I don't
I haven't
think so.
talked to them in a while.
Greg's
Well,
been
you being a thespian yourself, aren't you a member of SAG? Didn't you do that?
No, I'm straight.
There it is.
Oh,
I should be late enough
let's
to show that
just
the algorithm
edit that
doesn't
right out,
monetize.
Freddie. Just edit that right out of the show. Anyway, hey,
Just replace it with the
everybody.
word Greg. No, I'm Greg in the end there,
I'm
and then
Greg.
that'll be perfect.
So, hey, guys, I know we didn't mention it at the top of the show, but, you can send us your questions on YouTube. We answer them there. We also answer them in AZAAZ. We've answered, what'd you answer, like 16, 20 questions the last couple weeks over in AZAAZ, Greg? Or it's just kind of all done over there?
Yeah, kind of a mix of the two. It's wherever the question seems most conveniently answered.
So we were trying to cherry pick the best ones for this show, but if you get a chance, just leave us your question there. Leave us your question over on Club Z, and we will be happy to answer all of those questions for you. So, hey guys, thanks so much. As always, if you want to get in touch with us over here at Zenatta, please just head over to zenatta.com and click on book a meeting. Be happy to talk to you.
And on the website is where you'll find complete episodes of our weekly podcast, the CRM Zen Show, where we cover all the news in the world of Zoho every single week. If you want that news delivered to your inbox every Monday morning, be sure to subscribe to our newsletter.
And we talked it up so much this episode. Please join our online community, club.zenatta.com, where you can connect with the Zoho users. We share code snippets, as well as getting questions put on this show.
And in addition to that, train yourself up using our training at zenatta.com/training. I'm going to add the word training in here a little bit. On a serious note, though, I've actually had a lot of people give really good feedback about the training. So check it out. We've got CRM projects, a lot more to come. So make it happen.
Training.
Training. And as
Training.
always, be sure to like and subscribe here on YouTube, as well as your choice of podcast app. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Training. Training's a great band, too.
Yeah. You know how I knew about the writer's strike? Filled up with gas this morning.
Very
A little gas station TV thing.